Hello, welcome to episode 111 in the series where I'm programming an NES game. Tonight, live on Twitch. Hopefully, some people will join and say hello. Hopefully, you, if you're watching the recording, will join in on the next live stream and say hello. Some quick update stuff before I get started. Next week, I will probably just do one stream. Sort of a more impromptu stream. I don't think it will be the game. It will be some other little project, just for the purpose of streaming. And I will be once again traveling for work, so I will not be able to do my normal stream schedule. But I will definitely stream one night. And let's see what else. Yeah, I think that's everything. I'm going to try and keep this one short tonight just because I've had a very long day. I really just want to focus on getting the scrolling fixed here, and then we can move on to building some real levels and design and stuff like that. I don't remember if I ever showed this in any of the previous streams, but let's really quickly take a quick. That was redundant. Let's take a quick look here. RetroArch. Take a quick look here at Crisis Force, just because I've referenced it a few times, and if you haven't seen it, it's worth you seeing. So I had referenced the fact that there is really cool effects for both the I'm pressing, what am I pressing? Wrong buttons? Yes. So the scrolling, and I'm sure this isn't running properly because of a variety of things, but beyond just some of the things that they do with the enemies here, and obviously I'm not looking to just clone what they've done. It's really hard to talk and play this game at the same time, but I do like some of the things they've done. I like the fact that there's the shadow sprite there. If you pause it for a second, where's the mouse? You can't see it, but towards the bottom, there's a shadow sprite that kind of flickers. It looks really cool. There's a section here that's coming up where it's going to go back and forth. I'm just trying to get that far, and then we'll get into the game code. So there's a section where, yeah, you see how it's going to the left here? We'll be able to do the same thing with our new mirroring that we've set up here. Because we will have the ability to move the scroll left and right, back and forth, and so whatever's on the left will loop over here, and whatever's on the right will loop over there, depending on which direction we're scrolling in. So that really is cool, and there's just a lot of polish to this game. It's really interesting. Now, there are certain things that I have talked about with Cerulean Ascension that I want to do differently than sort of standard shooter, but you know, there's no denying that this game is certainly looks awesome. So keeping that in mind, let's get into this and fix this ridiculous scrolling here, and hopefully we can figure this out. If it's too quick, we'll jump into something else, but I expect that we'll spend a decent amount of time on this one. So the problem we're running into is that we are getting through our scrolling portion, and this is running at very high speed. We're getting through our scrolling portion. We go to a repeat mode, and then when we switch back to the map, we're seeing odd behavior, right? It's so right now, actually, our repeat scrolling is, that was strange. So the repeat scrolling had a problem there. Let's go back for a second. seems like things have gotten out of sync, and there are a few things that I had removed in the last recording because I was convinced that they were just essentially hacks for fixing a problem that that was not being fully addressed. So you can see here that once we transition the scroll over to the bottom, it's not updating the tiles properly. So let's address that first, because that's weird. So with the check screen memory stuff we were doing, we were looking at this and trying to determine, did we update screen memory to the point where it's now essentially in a section of RAM or the address space that it shouldn't be, right? There are valid ranges starting here at 2000 all the way to the end of that name table range, which is what, 239F it looks like, 23BF. But that 1 kilobyte range of memory, and then we have also 2800 and that 1 kilobyte range of memory. So let's start by looking at what's going on with that. Why are we getting this behavior here where it's not properly swapping over when we check the screen memory? So what we should be doing here is we should be seeing that we get so let's see, if we compare 1F and then we compare, okay, so if it's 1FE0, then the screen memory has, okay, wait a minute, I'm starting to think I might even see what's going on. So when we're checking the screen memory, I think the reason we were doing this, was because the scroll should match the portion of the name table that we're updating. But I think we're hitting a few different issues here. So the first is, as we're decrementing scroll Y, so we're comparing it to FF, and then if it's not equal, we're skipping this swap, but otherwise we're doing the swap, and then that would mean that we would have to interesting. So, but we're not changing the screen memory that would be updated to next. Now, in theory, at that point, we should already have updated the screen memory appropriately, but maybe that's not happening, which is why we're seeing this problem. Or maybe it's not 100% correct. So let's put a breakpoint here where if we do get to this, let's see what's happening, and we can let's restart. So scroll Y already hit that. Really? Oh, I guess so, because the scroll would have been 0, and then, okay. So, and then what is screen mem? 23C0. So it's 23C0 which is the, let's see, that would be the first, that's beyond the range of screen memory, but I believe we're going to subtract from it and it will be fixed. But let's see, also background mode is set to 1, and so, or sorry, not background mode, swap is set to 2, which is saying we're updating down here. So now we're going to swap it out and say we're updating up here, which is correct. So now at this point, let's see, so we're going to set the new tiles, and then we're going to what, subtract from screen memory. Yeah, and then we're going to subtract from screen memory. Oh, we're not actually going to do that here. Oh, so maybe that's why we're getting that behavior where we're seeing the update after. And okay, that makes sense. So if we go to our video settings here and we turn off the overscan, remember we had turned on the overscan sort of as a lazy way to just ignore the problem that we were seeing. You can see that we hit this, right, where we have a line that's just black tiles, and then when we continue on, it'll get populated, and then we'll do the same thing. It's really because I think we're rewriting to this row, or the previous row rather, the first time. We have to look at the map to see if that's actually affecting what we are displaying, but let's start with that. So when we load the level, we're storing where's screen mem? So we're storing 23C0. Let's try 23A0 here, so that we're actually updating a little bit ahead of the scrolling, which is what I probably wanted to do, but through just so many changes, it didn't happen. So it's 23A0. I don't know what that's for. Okay. Oh, that's weird. Why? Oh, I must have scrolled down. Okay. Anyway. So let's see if it populates the row here that we expect it to. No. So it's almost like the first time through. That's surprising. Why would it do it that way? So there's that part where we're updating the screen memory. Where else are we modifying screen memory? Process scrolling, load a screen mem, blah, blah, blah. That's where we're actually... So this is the only place where we're doing the subtract of screen memory. Huh. And that's kind of what I thought, but it's weird that then it didn't happen as often as I thought it would. So let's see. So scroll Y becomes FF, and we swap, and then we update scroll Y to be position 239. In this part, let's see, 2, 3. Okay, so that is definitely where we need to be doing the update. So let's look at, oh, you know what? I wonder if it's because our initialization is, it's correct, but, well, not correct. It's set up in such a way that we are not hitting the proper initialization check. So this is written as if it were kind of a rolling set of updates, right? But the initialization is setting it up for what it should be after the first frame rather than what it should be before the first frame, if that makes sense. So where are we updating? Well, even before that, let's go back and see. Scroll counter is 0. Maybe scroll counter should be 7 in order to load the first row into here. I feel like that would make sense. And then, because what's happening is we're iterating over an entire row of empty pixels essentially before we get to updating the one row here, but it's already kind of too late. We want to do it as we come into this. So if we, let's see, scroll counter, I believe that gets incremented coming into this. Done with object increment. So let's set scroll counter to 7. Because going into it, we want to say, okay, we got to update one row. Hey, Bonchaku, how's it going? So let's see if that actually has the effect that I think it should. So now tile counter is 0. Scroll counter is 7. So even the camera probably should be off by 1. I don't recommend changing color mid-frame, only for experimental use. Yeah, I mean, that video is so, I don't know how many people saw I retweeted the video that you posted, but I mean, it looked cool, but I imagine that it's a giant pain to force the NES to do things that it really doesn't want to do, like mid-frame palette swaps. So let's see. So now process the objects. Can you do run to? I don't remember. All right, so load scroll counter compared to 8. So we go to the next sub row. Now we're not doing... And so mtile y was 2. Maybe that should also be 0. I don't know if I'll be able to remove the artifact to some degree. Yeah, I don't... Based on what I know of how that stuff works, it seems like removing that is extremely difficult. But then again, I don't really know all that much about the mid-frame swaps at all. So it's a cool demo scene effect. So let's see, did this load correctly? So that actually loaded correctly. Man, so I think I just initialized things ever so slightly wrong, and it looked okay because I wasn't carefully examining what was happening. Okay, so now the repeat scroll is exhibiting the same behavior as the map load, but and now we're just, the scroll is totally weirded out. So let's see what this does as I run through it, but I want to see what happens. I want to see what I'm initializing everything to, and then go back to and see how that impacts things. So the tile updates look correct now. The attribute updates are all messed up. Surprise, surprise. But we'll look at that some more in a minute. So, okay, so scroll counter is this, which means that, which makes sense, right? Like the first time we go through the loop, we're subtracting from the scroll counter. Sorry, we're adding to the scroll counter, which means that we will force it to load a row, which is fine because the scroll position is at a point where the level is loaded and a new row should be loaded anyway. So what we need to do, it's funny, I don't know why I have this here. Oh, you know what? Probably because I need it for when we reload the map. So going into this 23C0, that's fine. So mtile y, oh, that is 0. Let's take a look at this. So load, okay, load A, subtract 2, store it into mtile y. Oh, so we are doing that the way that that's funny. I didn't think I saw it do that, but let's double check. Maybe I had skipped past the actual code that I thought I saw. Let's look for this. Okay. So that happens there. So scroll Y is already FF, and we will switch And do that, and then load the camera position. And the camera position should actually also be... should that be... I think that's actually okay. All right. So now we're not in repeat scroll mode, we're in map mode. So now increment the scroll counter. Although, you know, what's funny is, I guess there's some inconsistency in how this is working now with that change. I got to get this kind of sorted out in my head here. You know, this is of course the problem of kind of piecing all of these things together, not having a whole plan, and getting the individual things to work individually. Now we've got to wrangle this together. It's almost like what we need to do is set things up in such a way that we're actually at pixel 1, not pixel 0 of the screen that's loaded, so that the next frame that we hit, we load a row above it. And then when scroll Y gets decremented again and becomes FF, that will swap which portion of the name table we're looking at, and then get pushed down accordingly to the bottom of the new name table. So that would mean that what I was thinking initially but didn't quite follow through with is probably right. So the instead of scroll Y being 0, it should actually be 1. Because we're going to hit 0. We're going to hit scroll counter is 8, which means we've finished scrolling through the row, which means we're going to load a new meta tile row. And this is all in the initialization, like right at the beginning of the game, right? And then the camera should actually be 1 higher. So everything is going to be off just by a pixel at first. And then we're going to move to the next pixel. We're going to load the next row. Then we're going to scroll to the next position, which will have the effect of swapping which name table we're offsetting the scroll by. The scroll will then get pushed back to the appropriate position in the new name table, and that's independent of loading the rows. So, and just to make sure the camera doesn't get out of sync, we obviously have to do that, like I said, that increment. So we're storing Y position there, load A. I'm going to do the add of 1 here, because if we have a carry, we need to keep track of that since this is 16-bit. So add carry, store, branch carry, clear to here, otherwise increment camera by position +1. So okay. So let's see if that is a little bit better. Scroll counter 7. Scroll Y is 1. Is this just... Okay, so it just wasn't initialized. 100% right. Okay. So, okay, so far that was okay-ish. Let's restart. I didn't really catch all of that, so I want to see. It's like we're... Oh, no, okay, that was actually reasonably good. I'm not sure... Oh, because you know what? We didn't initialize this last row to anything. Which kind of sucks. Why? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 15. We load the level. Are we only doing 14? We are only doing 14. Let's do 15. 15 rows of 16. Nope. Wait, why did that? Because I'm 240. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Sorry, what was that in hex? F0. Oh yeah, that makes sense. I didn't need the calculator for that. I'm just tired. I've had a long day. Just long day. I only got home after work. I had to take care of some stuff, and I only got home about 8:30, so it was a long day. Didn't really get to take care of what I needed to at home. But here we are. That looked like what? I didn't do what I was supposed to. What happened? It's weird. 15 rows of 16, and that's 240. Oh, that only adjusts the camera position, doesn't it? Where are we doing the calculation to find where in the map we should start? That's why. We are, let's see, two things. We have to figure out our starting position, and then there's the easier part to check is, let's see, we're done with one screen. 1E, what is that? That's, oh, come on, brain, work with me. 16 plus 14, is that 30? Second guessing myself here. 30. 30 rows. Okay, so where are we? Y has our... Take the row offset and add the value, the X value to get the actual meta tile. Yeah, that's the row. Where is the meta tile? Add ROM address to temp and temp2 in order to seek into the map accordingly. 14, we want 15. Now we should actually have enough tiles to do this. Okay, so still some, oh, you know what, the attributes are probably wrong for that last row. That makes sense. Repeat scrolling is working now, so that first row, my guess is that's probably an artifact of the placement being wrong. Oh, the enemies don't load anymore. Is that because we never get a chance to even show them because of their positioning, because the map is so short? All right, so when we get to camera 0, let's take a look at what we're doing to do the swap. So when the camera, let's see, let's decrement by 1. Okay, so take the camera position. If it hits 0, then, okay, so this is the part that I want to set the breakpoint on. And see what I'm doing wrong now that we've made this change. Simple enough, right? Okay. So screen mem is 2260, which if we look at, that is this, so that's correct. So that shouldn't have any change when we call check screen mem. It did not. Stores that into the background mode. BG loop edit. Okay, so it's setting the repeat tile. And then we are initializing the camera position to the new position that we want. Let's see. And then we're initializing the player object even though it's dead, which is fine for now. Or we're essentially moving the player object. But I don't care about that right now. So, So now when we go back and we are in this mode where we're processing repeat scroll, my guess is that it's a similar thing to before where now everything is set up to go, but it's not set up to load the tile yet, and so things get kind of thrown off. Process attribute. That's the tile map. Where is repeat scroll? Okay, so scroll Y is 9F. Yeah, so it had just reloaded. It had just reloaded these tiles, which are garbage, because we're past the end of the map. So now what we want to do is we want to I wonder if we need to switch to repeat scroll mode and then reprocess that mode. The only thing that I'd have a concern with there, so if we incremented scroll Y, right, back to what it was, we'd have A0, which would pass this check because that is technically correct. What other things would have to be incremented? The camera would have to be incremented by 1. I guess that would probably work okay, because then the camera will have been reset to the new position. I'm just trying to avoid essentially rewriting some of the logic that we already have here for loading the tile rows. Yeah. So what we're saying is essentially increment scroll Y, and then instead of this it would be E1, and then instead of going to initialize sprites, we're going to jump back to, we got to see what else is so scroll counter also would need to be decremented. And then process map mode. So basically we're going to go back and rerun the process for that 0 position to load up the first row of the repeat scroll, which will go through its normal thing because the camera will have been reinitialized, and basically what you won't even notice that it did that because it'll happen in between updates. I think that will solve the garbage tiles. And I know there's attribute stuff that doesn't make sense. We'll fix that soon enough. All right, so we're going to swap. So it checks the memory. There's nothing to adjust. We're going to set the screen mode, setting up the meta tile stuff. We're going to set the camera's new position. We're going to load. Yeah, we're going to update the player entity, which doesn't matter. And then we're going to increment scroll Y, decrement scroll counter, and jump to process map mode. Now that's going to increment scroll counter, which is good. It's going to then initialize meta tile flag and then load the scroll counter. And it's not that, so that's okay. Wait a minute. Oh, I jumped to the wrong thing. Wait a minute. Yeah, I wanted to go to... I guess I wanted to go to gameplay state. All right, right idea, wrong implementation. Let's try that again. We also need to, what? decrement camera counter. Yeah, okay. Good to see our background collision is still working. Okay, so metatile flag gets reset. Camera counter is currently, I think it's going to be, yep, it's FF, which means it goes back to being 0. Although, you know what? It needs to be initialized to 8 because we want it to, we don't want it to skip the scroll process. Let's kludge that right now. Let's make it equal to 8. That's at 9C, so 9C. Let's make that 8, please. And then when you compare it, it should be equal. Oh, you didn't. All right, I guess I messed something up there, but all right, so load a 7, store a there, blah. Make all right, we hit our breakpoint. Same thing. Let's reset things to go back through the loop so that we can make sure that we populate the next row. So increment the camera counter. It should now, let's see. It's 8. Good. So it's initialized to 0. Scroll Y is now a 0, which means that we will, yeah, that's looking good. Camera, let's see, camera itself was at, oh, I thought I initialized it to E0. Sorry, E1. Y. Should have been E1. Did it? Oh, okay, because, right, we're checking the carry. I forgot. Okay. So then load, compare to repeat. We're going to jump to repeat. So load scroll. Y, it is a update. So now we're going to do the update, which is what we want. That's awesome. And now we're just going to process through this like we would normally. So if we were to run this just as is now, let's get rid of this. Well, damn it, why? So, I mean, the repeat scroll is looking okay, except that it is still wrong for this first row. And then, obviously, the rest of it is still broken, but that had looked right to me. Let's go way back. Okay, so there's the, that's because of the breakpoint that we had. Let's run and then rewind here. Weird. Why is that wrong? The position should be right in screen memory. That's not the breakpoint I wanted, though. Swap to screen scroll. So let's put a breakpoint when we're processing the scrolling, repeat scroll, and then we'll rewind back before that happens, and then we'll re-enable the breakpoint. We're going to look at what the screen mem is set to and stuff like that. So let's rewind. Okay, so hit that, do that. Okay, so screen mem is 2060. 2060, that is the right position as far as I can tell. Oh, but you know what? It's going to subtract. It's going to update screen mem. So it should, we should reset that too. Because we've already subtracted from screen mem in the previous process. We gotta add back to it here. This is kind of a pain. I'm not sure I like this method, but I'm not sure I can think of a better way right now. Clear carry, add carry. Actually, wait, screen mem is big endian, right? So screen mem is 2260, so I want to do that for screen mem plus 1. So screen mem plus 1, add carry that, store it to screen mem plus 1, branch carry clear to here. Carry was set, we got to increment screen mem. So we're just going to shift this back so the next time through, when we decrement the screen memory position, the NMI update of the screen memory will process correctly. I feel like we should probably break that out into something that gets handled differently, but for now this should fix that problem. So it's 2280, which is correct because we, even though that's this position, when we get to the end and we update the tile memory, it should update that position in NMI now. So if we, I think the attributes are wrong here. I think the tiles are probably right. So it's the 5B. What are the tiles that we have in here? 5B and 5C. Which yeah, so those are correct. So now the problem is the attributes. So that's actually fixed now, other than the attributes, which has become the story of my life. We just have to figure out why when we transition back to the lower name table here, that breaks all the things. It looks like it looks like the updates to the name table are fine, but the scroll is not. Or the swap is not. Maybe, well, yeah, the scroll is not. It's not updating that the way it should. at some point we're going to switch back over to the map mode. And you can see here in the PPU viewer, the tiles are right. The scrolling is way off. It's almost as if we've reversed the swap. We've reversed where the scroll should be compared to which name table we're updating. All right, so do I want to tackle the tiles or the attributes? Or the scroll? Let's tackle the scroll and then call it a night for now. Because I hate the attributes. I really do. So let's see what's going on. So we transition to repeat scroll. And that's all good. We know these tiles are valid. They just have the wrong name table stuff. And in fact, we could force that if we really cared about it. But here's where things get a little bit weird. So we get to this point, and then that broke. So let's take a look at what actually happened there. So, I mean, what happened is scroll Y hit 0, and then it went to FF, which is normal. But now what seems to have happened is something got messed up with the swapping. So swap is now set to 88. Well, that's no good. That should either be 2 or 0. So let's see where we're storing into this. Oh. Okay. So if we loop off the bottom of the screen for the screen mem check, it's modifying swap. Oh, but yeah, I mean, that's not right. It shouldn't be all of those bits. It should just be, right? It should just be either 2 or, yeah. That's weird. I don't know why it did that. Or I don't know why I did that. Because that's the whole bit mask for, what is it, the register at 2000. For the way the PPU is drawing. So that's a little strange, but okay. Just a mistake. I don't know how that ever worked. That's what makes it strange. So swap is good for now. Watch the PPU here. We're going to hit repeat scroll mode. Okay, so swap is 2, load background mode. That's just an unnecessary instruction, but anyway, so load swap, we switch it. Do I have... Oh, yeah, that should be 0. And... no, wait a minute. Yeah, that's fine there. I'm still confused, though, about what I'm seeing here, because that would mean... So we hit this, and then we wanted to go to the bottom of the next name table. Should check also the screen memory. 2BA0. 2BA0, is that down here? It is. So oh, we're double swapping. So the screen mem check is swapping, and then and then we're doing another swap here. Right, so that was why I was checking which background mode we were using here. Because in the repeat scroll, we're already doing the swap. So what we probably want to do is make this not require specialized logic here. But I'm not going to mess with that right now. Mostly because it's straightforward. It's more straightforward at this point than it was previously with all the other sort of edge conditions that we were checking and trying to account for. So I think we're okay comparatively. Just wanted to check my my logic there. Since I have been known to reverse logical conditions at times. So when we hit repeat scroll mode, we are now repeating the scrolls. And when we get to the top of this part of the name table, we should now have this be fixed, where it's going to determine that it's already swapped, so it should not have to swap again. And that is much better. So attributes still not working, but scroll is looking good. So now I just want to see what that looks like without the breakpoints and stuff, because that obviously will impact the way that things appear depending on when you break. So yeah. So, and the good news is we fixed the weirdness with the overscan. So that's looking good now. Now we can maybe we should add some sound effects to actually make a shooting noise or something. Okay, so we are getting a momentary little flicker there of when what's happening. The scroll is being adjusted, but the swap is not. I'm trying to understand exactly what I'm seeing. I think that's what it is. Oh, crap. I reset the game. Sorry. Let's get back to that here for a second. Yep. Okay, so let's reverse for a second here and then slow down the emulator to really see what's going on. But it's not so, I know what's happening, I just want to kind of see the timing of it, because it's not clear to me exactly when in this it's happening. So it looks like, okay, so it looks like we are, you know what, that makes sense. I think the problem, interesting, so I think the fact that we're adjusting swap here is too early. Because the scroll hasn't necessarily hit the point at which we need to do this swap. Again, that would then remove the unnecessary. That's why we had this in here, because if we didn't do this, then the scroll was in the wrong position. Now, the other problem that created was that things would ever so slightly drift out of sync, where you'd have your scroll getting, either the scroll getting ahead of the tiles or the tiles getting behind. Either way, it's no good. And now that all kind of makes sense to me why that was happening. And so now we don't even have to check this, because the swap adjustment has nothing to do with the screen memory position, but rather where the scroll is, which actually makes sense, because we want to update the tiles independent of the scrolling so that it's out of view. Let's see. Can probably speed up the emulation a little bit. Cool. So that actually, it looked like that worked seamlessly. So let's slow down the emulator just to make sure we didn't miss anything. But it looks like when we hit the top there, we update the bottom row, which is what we should. Yep. And then the scroll will transition naturally to the bottom name table. So that's perfect. Excellent. And now what we should see is that once the camera runs out of space to move in this counter that we are using, it will then go back to trying to load the map. So let's see how that goes. And that's looking good. Now there is a slight flicker there from the fact that it did the swap. It looks like it did the swap. But let's take a look. Okay, so let's go slow. Slow! Slow, damn you. Slow. What part of slow don't you understand? Okay, so it's when we load, when we switch to loading the map, we're getting a weird artifact. So let's see, does this adjusts it when param3 is 0? What else would be causing that? It's not in a position where it's transitioning between name tables, so that isn't the issue there. Could be the camera positioning. It could be. It's a little weird looking though. When the camera hits 1, we're good. And then the camera's going to hit 0. It almost looks like, oh, you know what? Maybe it's because we are updating the screen. We're updating the screen using load level, but not turning off drawing. Not that we would actually not draw, but we're potentially loading, we are loading stuff into, we're loading palette stuff, right? I wonder if that's going to trigger some sort of weird behavior with the PPU. Bonchaku, are you still there? You were working with palette swaps, mid-frame palette swaps, and you had mentioned something about that messing up the PPU and creating artifacts. It looks like you might not be there. Well, that's an easy thing to check. Let's just do a simple thing here where we say we're not gonna load the palette anymore. What we're gonna do that's load full screen. What are we doing here? This is the sprite palette loop, and we are doing some stores, but we're not doing them here. Where are we doing? It's 2006. I want 2007. Oh wait, yeah. Right, I just even saw it. So we're doing load palette here, but that's not what we want to do. So branch of equal to load full screen. So this is where we're prepping stuff. Let's just, for argument's sake, do a quick check and say that if param3 is branch if not equal to here. So let's actually skip the process of loading the palette and see if that fixes that weird glitching, because I'm thinking what's happening is that that glitch is actually coming from, because it was more of a distortion than like a shift in the the scrolling like we were seeing before, and that could be purely from updating the PPU without it turned off. You know, for the palettes, not for the tiles. That's okay. I know there are certain restrictions with updating palettes and whatnot. So let's see what happens if we. I mean, it doesn't hurt anything by not updating the palettes, because we are using the same palettes that we had before. But that would have to be a restriction then, that when we're swapping between levels and those interstitial metatile, repeat metatile, we'd have to either not use different palettes, or maybe limit the palette, or I think Banchaku said that you can do it on H blank. So when you're in the very, very minute gap between the end of drawing one line and drawing the next on a scan line, it's a really, really short period of time, and there's some tricks you have to know in order to detect that properly, or time that properly, I should say. I don't know that there's a way to detect it, so we'll have to we may have to sacrifice that functionality for the sake of not getting those artifacts when we try to reload the palette. Except we still saw that. Why? Load parameter 3. Branch not equal to load palette. Because, damn it. Sorry. Because of dumb things. Because I forgot to do that in the other part of the palette that we load. Try this again. All right, and then if this is going to work, then we'll wrap here. I think this will fix it. We'll know in a second here. The camera should be winding down. My caffeine boost only helped a little bit. hopefully enough to have gone through this. Yes, okay, so this was running at super speed, but let's go back and run at normal. There was no little glitchy jump there. If we run at slow speed, we will see that it will not mess things up. Yeah, so that didn't do it anymore. Okay, so that's the problem, is the updating of the palette at the time that we reload the map or swap to the map is creating a problem. Now, why attributes aren't working again, I can only guess. It actually looks like the good news is that it's not super far off, in some cases at least. But more than likely, the issue is what we've been seeing with all of this stuff, which is that it's just sort of these inconsistencies in how I was determining when certain events in the game occur. So determining when we should be switching between portions of the switching between the name tables and pushing the scroll register down and stuff like that. So we have to look at, you know, what got broken in the attribute updates. That I don't think it's everything. I don't think it got totally broken, but I think, you know, something is obviously out of sync, and you can see in the well, you can't see that now, but you could see when it was loading the map that the attribute table was just shifted basically by a byte, a row, which that's not so bad, right? We can fix that probably pretty easily, because that most likely means that we initialized it into the wrong position in the attribute buffer with the attribute index. It also looks like it gets worse with each flip, so that's something to keep in mind too. And we are still seeing some of these little jumps that we'll have to look into, but we're almost there. So let's wrap for tonight. Like I said at the beginning, I will do a stream next week. I don't know what the stream will be, but it will be something programming related, probably NES related, and a lot more freeform. I'll put some details out there on Twitter, and we can all discuss what we would want to do on that, if possible. And yeah, so as always, thank you for watching. If you want to reach out to me, I'm on Twitter at Clairvis. I'm on Nintendo Age as Zelius. I'm on the Discord pretty often. Come say hi. There are a lot of great people on there. I can also be reached at my email, which is zelius@gmail.com. And what else? If you're interested in pre-ordering the game, I'll have a link to it in the description, and that'll get you access to the source code before the game is released, for educational purposes only, until after the game is released. And yeah, I'm exhausted, so I'm gonna quit while I can still form coherent sentences. But thanks for watching. Have a great weekend. See you next week, and have a good one. Take care. Thanks.